Hey guys, welcome back. So today we want to talk about the Jackal from Palmetto State Armory. This is a rifle version. They introduced it as a pistol. They sold a bunch of them. They couldn't keep them on their website. Then you had the whole ATF reclassifying braces and people didn't want pistols anymore. And now they're offering them as rifles. The rifle's slightly different than the pistol. We do have a pistol that's been SBR'd, but this rifle is in flat dark earth. People have compared this to the SCAR. Some people have compared it to the AR-180. We'll talk about that in this video. I don't know that you can really compare it to other guns, but it certainly has features that you will recognize that have been used on other firearms. There's about 10,000 guns out there that are related, probably more. Anyway, with all that being said, let's get started taking a look at the Palmetto State Armory Jackal, America's new fighting rifle, if you will. And yeah, this should be a cool video. I have really been enjoying shooting these for, gosh, at least 6 months, if not more. A lot of folks ask me, how can I get involved in the firearms business in that particular community? And one of the best ways to do that is to become a gunsmith. Every gunsmith I know is just overbooked with work. It's a very good living. And so if you would like to become a gunsmith, you need to go to a gunsmithing school or become an apprentice for an existing gunsmith. But Modern Gun School is an accredited college that also works with veterans in the GI Bill, where you can go and get a degree from accredited college in gunsmithing and then go out and start your own gunsmithing business, which I think is a really great option. Again, throughout my entire life, gunsmiths have always been able to earn a really good living, assuming they have a really strong work ethic. So please check out Modern Gun School. I do have a link in the video description below. So the Jackal has a number of features you would expect on a modern rifle. We'll start off back here. It has a 1913 rail on the rear of the lower receiver. It's a little adapter plate that attaches to a standard AR-15 lower. Then you can put any type of stock that you want on it. This is one that Palmetto State Armory sells. But they have a couple of different stock options, but with that 1913 rail, you can put anything you want back there. Now, it is a standard AR-15 lower with a couple of parts that have been swapped. It does not have an ambi selector lever on it, but a simple trigger swap would remedy that if you wanted an ambi selector lever. It has a standard AR-15 mag release, does not have an ambi release. This looks like a standard ping pong paddle, but it's a little bit thinner, so if you do use a standard AR-15 lower, you'll need the end cap that attaches to the rear, and you'll need to swap this ping pong paddle out to make it a little thinner so it'll work with the upper. The upper is pretty much where the Jackal is proprietary. So it's a long stroke gas piston gun, has a 1913 rail that runs across the top. It is monolithic, so this upper piece is all one piece of aluminum. Then you have a hand guard with M-lock around it that slides over and is held in place by 2 screws. Back here we do have a QD mount on this little end plate adapter that attaches to the AR-15 lower. And then out here you'll have mounts for QDs on the handguard. Has a port buffer, non-reciprocating reversible charging handle, so you can put the charging handle on either side of the gun. And when you fire it, you can put your thumb there and it won't whack you in the thumb or cause a malfunction like a non-reciprocating handled SCAR. Out here, we have a gas selector. Again, it's a long stroke gas piston gun. On the end, this is a 14.5-inch barrel, but it has a pin and welded muzzle device on it for dead air silencers. And then I have a dead air can on this. So it does have suppressor settings. It also has several different gas settings that you can tune the gun to your ammunition and to your particular taste. Use a standard AR-15 magazine. And that's pretty much it. Earlier I said the gun had a 14.5-inch barrel. It's actually a 13.7-inch barrel with a pin and welded muzzle device on the end of it. Another thing I talked about, how it's a little bit heavier in the muzzle. That's primarily due, I believe, to the heavyweight, or I don't know if you call it a heavyweight, but it's a heavier profile barrel. I'm assuming that PSA just took one of their standard AR-15 barrels and used that for the Jackal. It wouldn't make sense to make their own barrel system. So that's what I'm guessing, but of course it has a different gas block on it. If you go back to my old videos where I compared the ACR and the SCAR 16, you'll notice that, you know, the ACR was always real muzzle heavy and people always complained about it. And so I took the guns apart, side by side, took the barrels out of the receivers, weighed all the different various parts, and discovered that they weighed almost the exact same weight. The biggest difference was the ACR had an M4 style profile barrel. Thick out front, tapers down underneath the handguard, and that extra weight really changed the balance dynamic of the gun. I think that's what's going on with the Jackal. So it'd be cool in the future if they offered a pencil weight profile option because I kind of like the lighter profile barrels. I don't go out and run 9 magazines through my gun and worry about shot stringing once the barrel gets super hot. I just like having a lightweight rifle. But right now, it's a little bit heavier profile on the barrel. So when we first got the Jackal, we saw the Jackal, I think it was in January of 2020 SHOT Show down in Las Vegas. As right as, you know, COVID was hitting and all that craziness was starting to happen. But we got to see it, but it was just a prototype. It was hanging on the wall. And I'll see if I can dig up a picture of it. But it was hanging on the wall. We took it apart, looked really interesting, had a mob of people standing around it, but it had a bunch of metal shavings in it and stuff. It was very much an early prototype. It was not a produced item. It was a one-off type of thing. They probably just had a handful of them for testing, and they weren't allowing people to shoot them, but we were able to see them and look at them and get a feel for them. And a lot of people were interested, ourselves included, me and Jason. So the guns came out soon thereafter, after SHOT Show, and we got a pistol. And the pistol, now, I didn't break one, but the pistols there's a little sled in here that the charging handle hooks into that kind of wraps around the bolt carrier. The sled was breaking where the charging handle went through. They immediately changed the design. And so if you have an older Jackal pistol and you need a different sled, just contact them. They'll send you one for your charge in the mail. The rifles, they're later production items. They have the updated parts in them, but PSA, like SIG and other companies, is constantly making changes to its products, improving the products. And so, you know, if you buy one of these a year from now, chances are some of the parts are going to change. You're going to have some minor changes done to them to improve the performance and durability, reliability, and all that other good stuff. The other thing we noticed about 2 different guns now, so we have the pistol and then we have this rifle, and both of them required maybe 300 rounds of 5.56 pressured ammunition with the gas port at its most open setting, allowing the most gas into the system before it became 100% reliable. Or put a can on it and the can would make them reliable. It just seems like the springs are really heavy and you just got to shoot a few rounds through them to stop the occasional failure to feed. But just know that if you get one of these and you start having a few hiccups with it, just put the gas wide open, run some 5.56 or just more 223 through it, and it should loosen up. The spring should break down a bit, and the gun should work just fine after that. The guns retail, they fluctuate. They do deals. They sell directly through Palmetto State Armory, but they retail for right around $1,300. $1,299 is what I've seen them for most recently. So they're not horribly expensive. Now, again, people have likened these to SCARs, to AR-180s, to all sorts of different things, and we'll take it apart in the next segment and show you what it looks like on the inside. Pretty much every modern rifle is like another rifle. You know, the gas systems, there's nothing really new in modern rifles. In locking systems with the bolt, how it locks, the AR-15 multi-lug bolt is pretty much the most common in Western countries right now. This is no different. So saying this is exactly like another gun doesn't really do this gun justice because it really isn't. None of the parts in this swap with anything else out there like an AR-180 or especially a SCAR. SCAR has a completely different gas system in it. So we'll take it apart next and take a look at what it looks like on the inside, show you what, you know, how easy it is to take the gun apart and how many components it has in common with a standard AR-15. All right, let's take the rifle apart. To start that process, make sure the magazine is out of the gun, pull the bolt slightly to the rear, check the chamber, make sure there's nothing in there, weapon safe. Keep it pointed in a safe direction. Now, much like an AR-15, you have 2 pins, front and rear. To clean it, you don't have to take the front pin out. You just want to cam it open like that. And then you can pull back on the charging handle. Well, first take the recoil spring out, push in, pull down, and the recoil spring will slide out. This is the little tab that locks into the receiver for the recoil spring guide rod. And then you can take your bolt and carrier out. And then if you want to take the sled out, you can pull the charging handle out by pulling it all the way to the rear. I didn't show you guys that, but this just pulls right out. There's a little takedown notch right there. Pull that out, and then the sled will slide right out the rear. Now, this is the piece that they've updated because they were prone to failure right in here, but the new updated piece presumably won't fail. Now we have the new pieces in the 2 guns that we have, and they've not failed. Even the old ones didn't fail. Let me find myself a disassembly tool here. All right, to go further, I have a little cotter pin right here. I'm gonna pry that cotter pin out. Take my firing pin out of there. Have a cam pin right there. Just gonna pull that cam pin out, and then the bolt comes out of the carrier. So it's very reminiscent of an AR-15. I'd say, like so many other guns, It's an AR-15 and AK hybrid. Long stroke gas piston, very AK-ish, and clearly inspired by the AR-15. So it's another one of those hybrid guns. And again, all guns are related in some way or the other. So saying this looks like an AK that had, you know, a baby with an AR-15 and that's all this is, it's just an oversimplification. It's a totally new rifle design, just like so many others out there. But again, it's going to borrow from historical firearms because there's really nothing new since the 1930s in firearms design. One other thing I want to point out really quick, obviously, that's just a standard AR-15 fire control unit in there. Actually, a standard AR-15 lower, to be technically correct. That's the slightly thinned ping pong panel. You can see how it's thinned out right there. But other than that, it's a standard AR-15 bolt stop. And then here you can see the end cap that's attached to the rear of the AR-15 receiver. And then that's the little buffer plug that fills in the hole where the receiver extension would go. You can still see the threads in there and the hole that's cut for the little plunger that would hold everything together on a standard AR-15. All that's removed. And yeah, so that gives you an idea of just how similar this lower is to just a standard run-of-the-mill AR-15. So how does the Jackal shoot? I'm glad you asked. So we'll pop off a few rounds here really quick. Watch that recoil impulse. It shoots great. Why is that? Why do I think that this gun shoots so smoothly? Well, you have an adjustable gas system, so we do have a baffled can on here, the dead air. And then we've tuned the gas to where it's just cycling perfectly. You can see that through the ejection of the spent cases. And so it's very, very smooth. That adjustable gas regulator allows us to tune the gun to the ammunition or to a can. Now, the gun is a long stroke gas piston, and this gun is not going to be as affordable as a Palmetto State Armory, say AR-15. You can pick those up for around $600. This is going to cost you twice as much. But what do you get for that? Well, you get a brand new firearm that isn't an AR-15, although it borrows some parts from it. But it's a purpose-built gun with a long stroke gas piston. So if you go back in our video library and we talk about guns like the PWS AR-15, it's a long stroke gas piston AR-15. I'll say that that gun is smoother than something like an HK416, which uses a short stroke gas piston. Those short stroke gas pistons, in my opinion, are more abrupt. And so the long stroke gas piston is a little bit smoother. I'm a huge DI fan, which I think is the smoothest system out there. But if I'm going to go with a gas piston gun, I generally like the long stroke guns, and this is no exception to that. And I also say, and I've said this many times in the past, don't modify an AR-15 and put a gas piston on it. Just, if you're going to go through that engineering, just design a new gun. That's what PSA did. They designed a whole new upper around a long stroke gas piston. And that, to me, makes far more sense than trying to shoehorn a gas piston into an AR. So overall, the gun handles very nicely. It's very smooth to shoot. And yeah, I mean, it's a great suppressor host. It's just a generally good 5.56 rifle. We've had no issues with it once we get past that break-in. Very, very cool. One more thing I failed to point out earlier is that this is a JMac stock on here. It's a factory option, but if you opt to get this particular stock, you do have 2 additional QD mounting points on the stock. I don't generally use mounting points for slings on stocks because when they fold, it messes with the whole dynamic of the sling. I rather attach it to the receiver, and you have that option with the Jackal. Now, the cool thing about Palmetto State Armory is we've actually toured their facilities. I know a lot of folks out there like to give them a hard time, say that they produce cheap junk and things like that, but that's simply not true. They're actually one of the best producers of AR-15s out there, and I really like their pistols, I like their rifles, and this gun is no different. So Palmetto State Armory, anytime they run into a problem, they'll immediately try to fix it. Case in point, you remember the Mac bracket and the AKV9. When I ran into those problems, I posted the video. I caused a bit of a fire drill over at PSA. They called everybody in on a weekend. I think it was Thanksgiving. They called everybody in and made them work to get that fixed. And then very quickly, they had a solution. They actually put a video out, called it the Mac bracket, and they are adamant about fixing it. That's how you handle customer service. They're easily one of the largest gun manufacturers in the United States right now. They have all modern machinery. I've met the engineers. They have real QC departments. They have checklists. Everything that you would see in modern manufacturing, they have. And so that truly impressed us and changed my opinion of the company when we saw all that. So that's why I say PSA actually makes a darn good product, and I have confidence in buying it from them because even if it is broken, they're going to fix it. All right, so with all that being said, what I think of the Jackal, I think you can probably figure that out on your own by now at this point in the video. I like the gun. I think it's really cool. I love seeing American innovation. I love seeing new American products, and I love supporting an American company like Palmetto State Armory. If you guys have any questions, you can ask those questions in the video description, actually in the comment section below the video description down below. We'll try to answer those questions. We generally stick around for the first couple of days after a video goes live to answer the questions you may have. If you'd like to support us here at the Military Arms channel, the best way to do that is to become part of our Patreon family. There is a link in the video description below. Also, right here on YouTube, you got the thanks and join button underneath the video player you're watching right now. Mash either one of those buttons and you can support us right here on YouTube in the age of demonetization. Last but not least, please swing by, check out Copper Custom. Thank you for 15 years of support. We'll talk to you guys soon.